All right, we're back in Exodus today. We're going to pick up the narratives, and Lord willing, we'll finish up all the narratives in Exodus and Leviticus. Talk more about that in a minute, but if you want, Exodus 19 is going to be our starting place for today, Exodus 19. And if you would, also please pray for the technology. I put this in our text, but it appears that the video file from last week was corrupted. I can see it. It has storage. It's right there. It has an image that I can see myself. I just can't open it for some reason. It even has capacity, like, what do you call that? It's 8 gigabytes big, so it's taking up space, so something's there. I just can't uncorrupt it. I've tried a number of things. So hopefully I can get that one posted. But last week we finished going through all of the laws, at least the ones that have been given to us so far. So we've got all of Exodus and all of Leviticus. We've looked at festivals and holy days last week. We looked at the moral and civil laws the week before that. We looked at all the different sacrifices that are provided. We looked at how the tabernacle is constructed and all that goes into that. So we've got kind of a well-rounded perspective, and we're probably ready to leave Mount Sinai, I think, now. So, but we're going to go back real quick and review where we left off so you can kind of see the progression here. And then we'll have this very heartbreaking moment as the Israelites once again rebel against the Lord, and we'll discuss some of the other things that happen. We have some difficult material in front of us today. We have a lot of questions, I think, that we will have to struggle through and think about as we deal with the holiness of God. But I hope that you will get a lot out of it. So here's where we left, everybody. This is in Exodus chapter 19. We're going to start in verse 16. We'll read a couple of verses here and then get the context. So Exodus chapter 19, verse 16. On the third day, when morning came, there was thunder and lightning, a thick cloud on the mountain, and a very loud blast from a ram's horn, so that all the people in the camp shuddered. Just remember again, we talked about this, but just use your imagination here and try to imagine possibly up to 2 million people shuddering at this site. Okay, I have a very crude cartoon image of Mount Sinai up here, but it says the entire mountain, we're going to read here, is enveloped in a cloud, and there's this ram's horn. This seems to be God's ram's horn. It doesn't seem like there's this priest that's blowing his brains out, blowing this ram's horn. It's like it's so loud, it's God's horn is sounding here.
Was it really 2 million people?
Roughly, we're not sure exactly, but if you look, yeah, it could be between like 1 million to 2 million. I don't think this is accurate, but I think I read up to 6 million. It's at least 1 million for sure. As the sound of the ram's horn, verse 19, grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in thunder. So this is before the people. And if you remember too, actually this is next. I'll keep reading. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai at the top of the mountain, and the Lord summoned Moses to the top of the mountain, and he went up. And the Lord directed Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to break through to see the Lord, otherwise many of them will die. Even the priests who come near the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out in anger against them." And that's because of sin, remember, is the idea there. So Moses responded to the Lord, "The people cannot come up to Mount Sinai since you warned us. Put a boundary around the mountain and consecrate it." And the Lord replied to him, "Go down and come back with Aaron. But the priests and the people must not break through and come up to the Lord, or he will break out in anger against them." And so Moses went down to the people and told them. And so this is what I pictured here. Now, the boundary may not have been physical, but it's possible that it was. It's possible that they would have clearly set up a boundary. We don't know for sure. There was some marking to indicate, don't go past this point. Maybe it was a little fence or something like that, but we don't know. It was just some kind of marking. The people are here. They cannot go up to the mountain. Even if an animal goes up to the mountain, it is going to be destroyed. Okay? So that's the situation. We then looked at how the New Testament speaks of this, that this is representative of the Old Covenant, but we can come with confidence directly to God through Christ. And this is not what the New Covenant is. And so I want you to keep seeing that contrast. That Christ has fulfilled it. So this is no longer our relationship with the Lord. This was our relationship with the Lord. But there is a separation here. The separation before, God wasn't even among the people. So this is significant that God is coming down. By the way, God doesn't live on this mountain. This mountain is not special at all. But so it's not like the Greek gods, right? Where, oh, he dwells up there, let's go and see him. He descends down onto this mountain and covers it. But it's significant he's doing that. He is coming towards the people, but there is a separation still that's there. And I want you to keep that theme in your head. We've looked at it a little bit with the sacrifices, but we're going to bring everything together. So Moses goes up and he's talking to God. For a little bit he's down here kind of talking, and people are hearing this thunderous response back and forth, but he goes up, he gets the instructions for the boundary. Now he's going to come down, he's going to get the 10 Commandments, which we've looked at before, right? So he has that's in Exodus 20. Let's push forward a little bit. Let's get the people's reaction after the 10 Commandments. So this is Exodus chapter 20, verse 18. All the people witnessed the thunder and the lightning, the sound of the ram's horn, the mountain surrounded by smoke. And when the people saw it, they trembled and stood at a distance. Now, isn't that interesting? There was a boundary, like they could come up to the Lord at this point. But when he gives them the 10 Commandments, they're withdrawing. They're scared, right? That's interesting. And here's what they say. You speak to us, talking to Moses, and we will listen. But don't let God speak to us, or we will die. They're absolutely terrified. Now, on the one hand, that's a good posture to have before the Lord, is to recognize his power and authority. That's what we call the fear of the Lord. But it's almost like they're going a little bit further than that. Now, they need a mediator. Moses is a very clear Christ figure here. But it's just kind of sad where it's like, they are distancing themselves some more here.
Did any of the people or animals disobey and go and die, and they saw that helped?
It's not recorded if it did happen.
Okay.
I think Moses probably would have recorded if that did happen because of all the other stuff he's going to record here. But this is very much, they're terrified. And to be honest with you, I think I would have been in that terrified group. I mean, this is very terrifying. So Moses responds to the people, but look at this. Don't be afraid, verse 20. For God has come to test you so that you will fear him and will not sin. So you have a healthy fear, but you don't need to be afraid. There's a very big difference between having the fear of the Lord and being afraid of the Lord. Do you see that? Yeah. And so he's challenging him, don't back away from the Lord. Have fear of the Lord, but don't be afraid of him. Big difference. And the people remained standing at a distance. They didn't listen to Moses there. They remained standing at a distance instead of drawing closer to the Lord. Moses approached the total darkness where God was. So there's Moses obeying. He goes right into the thick of it. He has a fear of the Lord, but he's not afraid of the Lord. And I think that is helpful to us as we see some of the other things that are going to be difficult for us to approach today, or when we have questions. I've been reading ahead into Numbers. We're not going to get into Numbers today, but there's some difficult things there too. And whenever there's something I don't understand in the scriptures, I need to still trust him and not back away from him. And at some point he'll either make that clear, or I continue trusting him as I push forward into the darkness. So this is where we kind of left off with Moses. If you look at verse 22 in chapter 20, the Lord told Moses, "This is what you are saying to the Israelites. You have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven." And then he reiterates part of the 10 Commandments. Do not make gods of silver to rival me. Do not make gods of gold for yourself. A little bit of foreshadowing here. Make an earthen altar to me, and he describes kind of what this is before the tabernacle. He hasn't given those instructions yet. We're going to get that a little bit later. And he goes on to give him some additional things. So Moses is in the darkness here somewhere on the mountain talking with God. Then he's going to come back and talk to the people. So let's skip forward to that because we've already looked at these laws, the next couple of chapters. I believe we're ready for chapter 24 now. This is a very special moment. And this chapter has some things in it I wonder if you've ever seen. I know I've read this chapter many times, and a couple years ago, actually maybe been 10 years ago now, I was reading through this, and I had just been through this passage so many times before, and I was like, there's a couple verses in here that I have no memory of. And they're so significant and shocking let's camp out there a little bit. So let's see this. Here's what happens now as he has still not given the tabernacle instructions yet, but he's given some of the basic laws. Okay, Moses is coming back down, and now he's going to readdress all of the people that are out here. And probably I should have removed them because they've taken a few steps back. They're over here somewhere. So Moses is coming back down. Actually, one other thing that we should mention here, which I think is really interesting. I don't know if this is exactly what God intended, but you notice how Moses is kind of going back and forth like this to the people, being that mediator. You remember when we talked about the Day of Atonement, where the high priest is going in, he's doing stuff with the incense, he's coming back out, he's going in, he's going out. Moses does a lot of that kind of thing. And Moses is the high priest right now. Aaron will then become the high priest, but Moses is kind of an interesting character in that he's both the leader, but he's also the priest, prefiguring Christ. But there's very much this going into the presence of God. But this smoke is not just a scary smoke. This smoke is God protecting his people from his wrath. That smoke is so that he doesn't destroy them. So just like that smoke in the Holy of Holies, or actually what they call the most holy place at this point in the tabernacle, is protecting the priest from the presence of God. Here, this smoke is also protecting them. So.
Okay, I'm confused
No problem.
because the last time I was here, we did the tabernacle, and we had, it was called the tabernacle?
Yes, the tabernacle.
Or the temple.
Temple comes later. Right now
Okay.
they're in the wilderness, so they have a tabernacle.
And we talked about the Holy of Holies and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're talking here and you're saying he hasn't given them the instruction. We're not going
Sorry
in,
for the confusion.
Are we not going in
We're not going in
chronological?
chronological order for the last maybe 5 weeks.
Oh,
We
okay.
basically brought us up to this point where Moses is going on the mountain. I said, what we're going to do now is we're going to take all of Exodus and Leviticus and look at all of the laws that God provides.
Okay.
So we looked at the tabernacle that week. We looked at the 5 main sacrifices another week. We looked at all of the other laws. There's
Okay.
a lot of them, moral and civil laws. We looked at festivals and holy days,
Okay.
special times of the year. I think there was one more that I'm missing, but we took all of that. Then we skipped over all the narrative sections. So now we're coming back
I see, okay.
and we're filling in the gaps, what's happening
Okay,
in there.
got it. Okay, thank
Yep,
you.
you're welcome. Yeah, it is a little bit confusing, but all right. So Moses is kind of doing this back and forth, back and forth. Now we have a very special covenant ceremony. So let's pick this up in chapter 24, verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "Go up to the Lord, you, Aaron, Nadab and Abihu," those are Aaron's sons, "and 70 of Israel's elders, and bow and worship at a distance. Moses alone is to approach the Lord, but the people are not to approach, and the people are not to go up with him." Okay, so after he's done kind of some back and forth, there's going to be a select group of people that are going to go, not just Moses this time, which is very fascinating. More on that in a minute. Moses came and told the people, verse 3, all the commands of the Lord and all the ordinances. That's like chapter 20 through 23. Then all the people responded with a single voice, "We will do everything the Lord has commanded." So this is kind of a call and response situation. This is also very similar to a king or an emperor at the time that is establishing his rule before a people. The 10 Commandments are actually set up. They kind of reflect a lot of the codes of the day that these kings would set up. And so this is like that kind of, these people are basically saying, we will be ruled by you. Okay? So Moses wrote down all the words of the Lord. He rose early the next morning and came up, or set up an altar and 12 pillars for the 12 tribes of Israel at the base of the mountain. And then he sent out young Israelite men, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed bulls as fellowship offerings to the Lord. So this is, again, before he's given the specific instructions of the tabernacle, he's requiring some of those sacrifices that we talked about. The burnt offering is the one that is complete dedication to the Lord. It's totally consumed. The fellowship offering is one that basically, because our sins are covered by the burnt offering, we can now have peace with God. He's not going to destroy us. And we have fellowship with one another. That's what that is symbolizing. But this is different. This is very unique here. Moses took half the blood and set it in basins. The other half of the blood he splattered on the altar. Then he took the covenant scroll and read it to the people. So he's just reading the 10 Commandments and the other laws that he's just received. And they responded, "We will do and obey all the Lord has commanded." So Moses takes the blood and splatters it on the people. Okay, this is one of the only times where we have blood being put on the people. Usually it's put on the altar, it's put on the Ark of the Covenant, it's splattered before in different places, there's different things where blood is put. But this one is actually inaugurated. This covenant is inaugurated in blood, which is very important because that's how Christ establishes the new covenant. Yes?
Is this just the people who went with him at this point, or is this everybody?
This is everybody. Now,
That's
some
a lot of
scholars,
blood.
yeah, it is a lot of
blood.
blood, and because of that, some scholars think that what he means is, remember, he sets up those 12 pillars. So there's 12 pillars here.
And on the different pillars.
So maybe he's putting the blood on these to represent putting it on the people.
All the tribes.
Could be. Because sometimes the language is a little bit more ambiguous than it appears in English, and that goes a little bit beyond me. But one scholar mentioned that. I thought that makes sense because he didn't do lots of sacrifices here, but maybe he did, or maybe you each get a little dot of blood. I don't know, or just generally he throws it in front of them. So
There's a little red dot.
yeah, there you go, little red dot. Mm-hmm. All right, so then Moses says, verse 8, this is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you concerning all these words. Okay, does that sound a little bit similar to the Last Supper? Jesus' statements there. Now we get back to your question, Dennis. What happens with these other people that are going up with him? That is this part right here. Check this out. This is wild. Then Moses went up with Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, his 2 oldest sons, and 70 of Israel's elders. And they saw the God of Israel. So they're going up into the smoke. Beneath his feet was something like pavement made of lapis lazuli. That's a very sparkly blue, shiny rock, as clear as the sky itself. God did not harm the Israelite nobles, that's those 70 people. They saw him, and they ate and drank a meal with him. Imagine that. Okay, so here's a group of people, small group of people. Maybe they're, halfway up. I don't know. It doesn't say exactly, but they're starting to go up to the mountain. So we have Moses who's with them, and then we have Aaron who's there, right? His 2 sons are there with him, okay? And then we have the 70 other folks. So they're now up here, and they are basically seeing God's feet. I loved the way that one scholar put this. He said, they saw the Lord. Now, the Lord is still protecting them. No one has seen his face. We're going to get more on that in a minute with Moses. But they apparently, God was so magnificent and so glorious that they didn't even think to look past his feet, or didn't have the ability to look past his feet, or focused so much on the beauty of just his feet that that's the only part that's recorded here. They see the bottom of his throne and the pavement on which his feet is, and that's what they're focusing on. If you have read into Ezekiel and Isaiah and Revelation, you'll recognize some of the details here, specifically Ezekiel and John's glimpse into God's throne room. The details are very similar, and so the way I think about it is they are just like looking at the floor, and then Ezekiel zooms back and kind of looks up like this and focuses on a lot of the angelic beings that are out there. But also, it's like he comes under the floor. He sees the floor and then all this lightning and rainbow things. John then kind of gets the front row seat, very close and very intimate into all of the things. So if you want to do some extra reading into this, you can see the very early stages of what other people will eventually see about God. We're coming to it, we're looking back, right? We have so much more knowledge than they did. You're seeing this for the first time. You have very little knowledge of God, and this is now being revealed. God's feet. Wow.
I have no problem believing. Is that what I'm saying? I believe this all happened, but someone who's lost, you tell, because there's been so many miraculous things throughout the Bible, I just accept it.
Yeah.
I guess that's just my faith, but a lost person would look at that and say, gosh, come on.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, that's horrible that I feel that way, but I just.
No, but that's what the Bible explains, is that we have in the flesh, we can't understand or know these things. The Spirit has to work, and then those blinders come off. But it is incredible as you think about it. It's like, how do I explain things like
Yeah.
these? And that's why it's not our job is to communicate the truth of God. And fortunately for us, it's the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
It just blows, and then suddenly, oh, there's salvation here. How did that work? God. Yeah, it is incredible.
But you don't expect a new believer to have to take in all of this.
Yeah.
Look how many years we've been studying.
Oh, yeah.
the Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it definitely, I mean, you could throw somebody in the deep end, but this is great perspective, though, because it's like us, we've been in the Bible, many of us, for many, many years, and it's like we've only seen the feet of God, and there's so much more of Him to see, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, new believer maybe sees the toenail of God, and then there's so much more of His feet to see. Okay, a couple of other things here. They sit down and have a meal with God.
Yeah.
Wow. And so again,
But
that
they're only
goes.
seeing his feet.
Yeah, they're only
so
seeing
it's
his
kinda-
feet, so-
Kinda,
Was he eating? Is he really eating?
Yeah.
Where does this food and drink come from?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
I love that.
I was
Okay.
thinking the same thing.
So, I wish that Moses would have written a little bit more here.
Moses.
Don't you? Right? This is why it's like, how did I miss from so many years verses 9 through 11 here? They saw him and they ate and drank. Especially that one. It's like, okay. So this reminds me of when the disciples, after Jesus is resurrected, some of them have seen him. They're in a boat and they see him on the shore. He's calling out to them. Of course, Peter jumps out of the boat. This is the restoration of Peter in John. Jumps out of the boat and rushes to the shore. Jesus is there after he's helped them fish. He has fish that he's cooking, right? Where did he get those fish? It reminds me of that. So maybe God reaches down. They're seeing his feet, and he's like, "Here, have some food and drink." He's been providing them manna. So maybe it's that kind of situation.
Yeah, with the little boy with the fishes.
Yes, I was just thinking of feeding the
Chum, chum,
5,000.
chum,
Feeding
it just
5,000, yeah,
happens.
there you go. But
Is that one of the verses that you didn't remember? I don't remember this part at all. I don't think I've ever
I'm
even
saying
read
this
that
is
part.
new to me. I've not ever
Yeah.
They just
read
put
this.
it in
it's
there.
always right here, yeah.
Just this,
Wow.
Exodus 24, 9 through 11. And actually, I was trying to teach on this a couple of years ago to some of my college students that this came up, and I was like, where is that? I was thinking it was in Numbers, and it's right here. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this. Because here's the other thing. This is the old covenant. For them, this is new, okay? This is happening. Jesus institutes the new covenant at the Last Supper with a meal. So in my mind, I'm thinking, are they having bread and wine here? I don't know. Doesn't say. But that symbolism definitely is there. And so then think about the disciples as they're sitting down with Jesus. They would have been familiar with this. They would not have just forgotten about it, right? This is an integral part of their education. They know this. They probably have some of this memorized. And so he starts speaking this language. They go right back to this moment. And they're going, wow. Here's the other interesting thing. The 70 number is not a coincidence either. There are 70 elders that are eventually appointed. Moses' father-in-law kind of first floats the idea of you need some help, dude. Don't do this all by yourself. But there's been kind of a puzzling situation that I've always thought is weird in the New Testament, where Jesus sends out 70 disciples, not 12 disciples. He sends out 70 disciples. So it's important for us to keep in mind that he had a group of disciples. We talked about this when we studied Acts, that there were up to about 300 of them at the beginning of Acts. So he had a big group of disciples. The 12 were his very close knit group that he was teaching more. But he sends out 70 of them. And I think that number is intentional, kind of, again, showing that something new is happening like this. And so when he goes out in Matthew chapter 5, if you look, when Jesus goes up to a mountain and he sits down and teaches his disciples, it's not just the 12 that are there, it's this big group. and he is basically being the new Moses, and he talks about the 10 Commandments. And he says, you have heard this. So he's being Moses as the new lawgiver. So that's one way he's fulfilling this. But he doesn't fulfill all of it right then. He then later has that new covenant ceremony with him. Yeah.
Isn't that when a lot of his disciples went away? Is
John
that
6.
isn't
Yeah,
that-
so
That's
in
right.
John chapter 6, at the end of that, when he basically is telling them, eat my flesh and drink my blood, you know, many of them leave at that point. Now, we don't know how many there were. In the beginning of Acts, there's about 300 of them. So could there have been more than that? I don't know. Did some of them return? The disciples, the 12 disciples did not at that point. They stayed. Jesus asks them, are you going to leave me too? To which I think it's Peter that responds, where else would we go? You have the words of life. All right, so that's a really special moment, isn't it? I just thought we needed to spend some time there. Do you have any other questions?
It just makes
on
you think of all the years I've been in Sunday school, all we learned about were the 10
Why has
Commandments.
this never turned into a children's story?
Story, yeah.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Just
Exactly.
like Noah and what have you, you know, yeah.
We must teach the Word of God. Now, we do, right? But sometimes we forget that behind the flannel graphs, there's actually text, and we
Yeah.
need to get into that again.
Seven is a perfect day. Made.
Seven's the perfect.
Yeah.
And 10 is laws, so
Yes.
10 times 7 is
There
70.
you go,
It has
yep.
to be another perfect number, right?
Yep. God
I
loves
don't
7, He
know.
loves
I'm
10, He
just
loves 3.
Throwing it out.
Well,
Love
it's
it.
just, it's not a coincidence, you know? Yep,
He's a math genius.
yep, thank goodness.
Really is. All right, let's move on. Verse 12. This is when the stone tablets are written. So Moses wrote things down on a scroll first, and now God is doing the tablets. Verse 12. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay there, so that I may give you the stone tablets with the law and commandments I have written for their instruction." So Moses arose with his assistant Joshua, and I believe this is the first time Joshua is mentioned. He's going to be more and more common here. So Moses now goes up further, and now it's just, so Joshua must have been here at this time, or I don't know, maybe they send down and bring Joshua up, but it's kind of interesting that Joshua goes, but not Aaron. And not anything against Aaron, but you know, God is saying this, and Joshua's right there. We believe Joshua's a very young man at this point, and so he just definitely, Moses seems to be like pouring into him, investing into him, that kind of thing.
Well, Moses is over 80 at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
exactly.
Maybe he sent a young man to help the old man.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Joshua's like, I don't know, I was just helping this old guy, and now I'm leading this flock of people.
God
That may
knew
have been
Moses
why-
wasn't going to go in the promised land. He had to have another leader.
Yep,
So you have a leader training a leader.
yep,
Makes sense to me.
absolutely.
And Joshua was his assistant, so wherever Moses went, Joshua went along, you know, so
Mhm.
it's kind of obvious he'd be around somewhere.
Yep. So verse 14, he told the elders, "Wait here until I return. Aaron and Hur are here with you. Whoever has a dispute should go to them." So that's just very practical there. Verse 15, when Moses went up to the mountain, the cloud covered it. The glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. The cloud covered it for 6 days. On the 7th day, he called to Moses from the cloud, and the appearance of the Lord's glory to the Israelites was like a consuming fire on the mountain. And Moses entered the cloud as he went up the mountain and remained on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Okay? So, and Joshua's there too. So now they're way up here. The elders, it sounds like, with Aaron, returned back to the people. Otherwise, the people would be leaderless. Though it doesn't say that, but it talks about like who's going to be settling disputes in Moses' absence. So now we have 40 days. Okay? Now,
Why the number 40 is a key number? It's used several times.
that's a good question. Yeah, it is used many times, isn't it?
You got a copy. Yes.
I don't know why it is that way. I'd have to do some more research on that. But yeah, I mean, the flood is this way. Jesus spends 40 days in the wilderness being tempted. The Israelites will wander for 40 years in the wilderness, right? Yeah, it's great.
According to this, it says, it's a preparation time, and once they hit the 40-year age, they're going into maturity.
So I'm almost mature.
40
is what
sounds
you're
like
saying.
a long age to be mature, but that's what they're saying. I don't know the history of that, so.
Yeah, it's a good question.
So is this 46 days? Because it took him.
Yeah,
God was 6
so-
days before he revealed himself there. Or?
On the third day of their first month is when this started. I don't remember how much time passed, but then he's up on the mountain doing elder things for like another 6 days. They come back down, Moses goes up further, and then he's there for another 40 days and 40 nights.
So you're looking at
So,
49 or 50 days like Pentecost.
yeah, interesting, yeah. So I don't know if there was time here. It doesn't really sound like it. It sounds like it was pretty fast. So, yeah, maybe that's interesting. About 50 days. Okay.
Since we're talking about numbers, in
Yeah.
PBS this year,
Uh-huh.
we're talking to the kids about the feeding of the 7,000.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
That's a fun
Cindy
one.
Zorns came to me and said, how many? I said, 5,000. She said, well, that's what they're saying. I said, well, we looked it up, and then there was another time.
Yeah. Yeah. He does that
I
miracle
never
a couple of
heard- I
times.
didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yep. And then John says, and he did many other things. So maybe he did that miracle many other times too. Who knows? All right. Then, to Laura's point earlier, this is at the point where Moses gets the idea, or not, he gets the idea from the Lord, not he invents it, but God is now going to tell him about the tabernacle. So I'm going to draw that up here again, just in case you missed some weeks, just so we're all on the same page. We'll just catch us up here. All right. So now, imagine that pretty much everything else we've been talking about for the last several weeks, now this is where Moses is getting those instructions. He's learning about all of the holidays, the holy days that they're going to celebrate. He's going to get the details of the tabernacle. He's going to get the exact measurements, the uniforms that Aaron and his sons are going to wear, all of the sacrifices that they're going to offer. This is what the content of those 40 days is. When I was a kid, I used to think it took God 40 days to give him the 10 Commandments. How slow does God talk? You know? Nope. 10 Commandments were earlier. Okay. Now I believe he is reinscribing those. He's inscribing those 10 Commandments at first during this 40 days, but then there's all these other things that are being talked about, and Moses is up there. And just imagine that. You're up there for 40 days, and some of you are like, yeah, I can imagine that. We've been studying this for 40 days.
He's got to remember all
was
that
kind of
too,
the
to take
point.
back to him.
Yeah, he's got to remember it. He's got to write it down. This is actually significant for apologetics, when people are like, all of these legends that you guys believe in the scriptures, we have firsthand accounts. Remember how many times it is said already, and Moses wrote these things down. He was there in person. He wrote them down, not years later. He wrote them down as they were happening, and they came directly from the mouth of God. That is how scripture works.
Do you think he wrote it down on papyrus or papyrus?
So,
And why did God choose to use stone tablets instead of?
yeah, great question. So probably they may have had some papyrus with them, but papyrus is made out of reeds that grow along the Nile, so that supply would have run out pretty fast, I imagine. So most likely he's using parchment, which is made of animal skin, which they would have had the ability to replenish.
Right.
Okay. The tablets are more permanent, right? So this is something that cannot be, like,
It's
papyrus
just,
is extremely brittle, and so it does not age very well at all.
Okay.
Parchment is a little bit more durable, but it can accidentally rip if you give it to a toddler, or if you accidentally drop it in the fire or something like that, right? Stone tablets, much harder to destroy. And so this is something where God is saying, these are my words, this covenant cannot be broken, they're inscribed in stone. It's also very similar to what other kings did at the time. One of our earliest forms of writing, the Code of Hammurabi, is on a very large stone, and it's carved. Okay, this is not a stone a single individual could carry. It's a pillar. Okay, I don't remember how tall it is off the top of my head, but it was designed to be stood up and people could read it. So I would say maybe 6-7 feet tall, something like that, and it goes all the way around. It's circular. Some scholars even think that that's what God gave Moses, and so he's coming down on the mountain with this, 2 gigantic, pillars. Who knows? But it actually sounds like the 10 Commandments when you read it. There's more than 10, but anyway, it sounds like those laws. So Moses is up there. He's getting all of these things, and so I draw that back to your attention because meanwhile, while he's up there for 40 days, Israel decides to make the golden calf. And so before we get into that story, I told you this a couple of weeks ago, this is absolutely heartbreaking. And here's why. I mean, it's heartbreaking, idolatry just in general. But think about this concept here, where God is making a way to be able to be with his people, for them to be with him. And he's describing to Moses something even better. Because look at how separate the people are here and how they're drawing away from him. Here, he's made a way for the people to have covering for their sin, to have fellowship with God. All of the beautiful symbolism that's in here, all of these things, this is what God is designing for them. And as a reminder, the people will be camped around the tabernacle. That was the plan. That God is going to be in the middle of his people, and they are going to be camped around the tabernacle. There's still a dividing wall, right? They can still come into this area, but they can't come into here except for the priests, and only the high priest can come in here once per year. But still, this is beautiful. But here's the response of the people. Of course, they don't know what's happening. They just know that Moses is gone. Let's turn to Exodus 32. Exodus 32, when the people saw that Moses delayed in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make gods for us who will go before us, because this Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt," real quick, who brought them from Egypt? God. "We don't know what has happened to him." I mean, to be fair, 40 days is a long time, but wow. Aaron's supposed to be the priest. Here's his response. Aaron replied to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on your ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters. Bring them to me." So they all took off their gold rings and brought them to Aaron. This is their plunder, by the way, from the Egyptians that God was setting aside for the tabernacle and for other things. He took the gold from them and fashioned it with an engraving tool and made it into the image of a calf. And then they said, "Israel, these are your gods who brought you up from the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of it and made an announcement. "There will be a festival to the Lord tomorrow." And early the next morning they arose, offered burnt offerings, and presented fellowship offerings. The people sat down to eat and drink and got up to party or engage in revelry or play, depending on your translation. The idea there is it's a celebration that's raucous and probably sexual in nature. Okay, as we interpret it. Wow.
They made a golden calf, but it's supposed to represent their gods.
Yes.
So was the calf, did they put, was it like symbols each one of their gods that they had in Egypt?
So this is the very interesting thing here. It seems like, as you look at the language, that what they are asking is not about Egyptian gods and not about Canaanite gods. What they're doing is they're trying to move on without Moses, and they're like, well, now that he's not there, who's going to represent God for us? And they still want to worship Yahweh. So what they decide to do is very similar to what we saw Adam and Eve do. They decide to do it themselves. So what they're asking Aaron to do is to fashion an image of God.
But they're
And-
talking about gods.
Yeah, and the language there is kind of ambiguous, especially since they're talking about the gods that led them out of Egypt. Now, some scholars are split on that. Some of them are like, no, they're representing Canaanite gods or whatever. But most scholars say that what they're doing is they're bringing their own view of God. They're trying to worship Yahweh, but they're bringing their own view of what he's like and what worship of him is like.
So that's what I thought as a kid. But now when I read it and I see gods, I don't know how one symbol can be
Yeah.
gods.
Yeah, it's weird, for sure. Regardless of the fact, this is a complete act of rebellion. God has established Moses as their representative, Aaron is their high priest, and he's describing the way that offerings should be held. Ironically, at the same time, the people are creating an image of God, breaking the first commandment, first and second commandment, I believe, and they're worshiping it in their own way that they've established. So whether they are trying to worship God in their own way or worshiping pagan gods, either way, it's not okay. It's not like, oh, you were trying to worship me? Fine. No, you can't approach God on your own terms. It doesn't work that way. That's what Adam and Eve were like, oh, we can know knowledge of good and evil without God? Like, here's this other way? And they could, you almost could hear them say, well, God, we wanted to know about good and evil. That's something that you would approve of. You can only come to God in the way that this is very similar to Jesus, right? I am the way, the truth, and the life. Yeah.
I see the devil in both situations where
Yes.
they tempted in the garden. Now he's putting doubt in their minds
Yes.
of the people that are like, Moses is gone, what are we gonna do? And they come
Yeah.
up with their own solution.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And then Aaron, their high priest.
The 70 elders have gone back down to these people. Right?
Yeah, so the elders are participating in this.
And after that, that's what they just experienced.
Yeah.
That's
You mean the
impossible.
70 came down and
That's
did it too?
impossible.
Yeah.
And maybe I should say,
Oh, I missed
it
that.
seems like there may be some people that either weren't a part of it at all or who immediately repented. We're going to get to that in a second. It's not exactly clear if everybody was involved. It does say the people, and Aaron was involved. And to your point, yeah, after doing this,
After
Aaron
he saw
comes
the
down.
feet of God?
Yeah.
Oh my,
This is hard
So,
yeah.
process.
very, very terrible situation. Let's continue here.
It is terrible, but I can understand why, because they're afraid to look at God, and they think,
Yeah.
they don't realize you can't go to a mediator, go between, God wants you,
Yeah.
not this statue or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I can go sideways too, I mean, I
Mhm.
understand.
We do the same thing today,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I actually heard an interview of somebody recently who, just this week, I saw this video. He was asked, why don't you follow any organized religion? You seem to be a very spiritual person. And he was very much into like taking kinds of psychedelic types of drugs to have spiritual experiences. And his response was, every other religion in the world requires a mediator. I feel like I want to be able to come to God on my own. And I was like, wow, you cannot get to God without a mediator. But what he was missing is that you can be in an intimate relationship with God through Christ. And he was just missing that. He didn't want to be separated from God, but he's choosing to be separated from God at the same time. Verse 7, the Lord spoke to Moses, go down at once, for your people, that's interesting, right? Your people, not my people. You brought up from the land of Egypt. So he's actually using the people's words there, which is awesome. Actually, it's kind of scary, honestly. Are acting corruptly. They have quickly turned from the way I commanded, the way I have commanded them. They made for themselves an image of a calf. They've bowed down to it, sacrificed to it, and said, Israel, these are your gods, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. And the Lord also said to Moses, I have seen this people. They are indeed a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger can burn against them and I can destroy them. And then I will make you into a great nation. Now here, Moses is again a prefigure of Christ. He's going to mediate for the people. The Lord's anger is righteous here. He is a righteous God. He must destroy sin. He is going to destroy sin. But now Moses steps in as a mediator. This is beautiful.
What did you say? Moses is a brief what of Jesus?
A prefigure of Jesus, like
okay.
Foreshadow, if
Okay.
you will. Yep. But Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. This is verse 11. Lord, why does your anger burn against your people? You brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a strong hand. Why should the Egyptians say, he brought them out with evil intent to kill them on the mountain and eliminate them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger and relent concerning this disaster planned for your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. You swore to each of them by yourself and declared, I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of the sky, and will give your offspring all this land I've promised, and they will inherit it forever. So the Lord relented concerning the disaster he had said he would bring on his people. Now, this is important to discuss here. Relented, a way to think of this is not God changing his mind, because we know God doesn't change his mind, but he's redirecting his wrath from one channel to another channel. And ultimately, that channel is Christ. He will crush his son in order to save us from sin. So one way or the other, his wrath is satisfied and his righteousness is satisfied. Okay? Here, what does happen is there are still very severe consequences for sin and lasting consequences for the worship of God. But Moses stands as the mediator, so instead of immediately destroying the people, it's actually partial. Okay? So we're going to skim through this next part here. He does. Go ahead.
Sorry. I just want, Moses is still up on the mountain though?
Yep.
So how did God tell him?
Yeah,
then?
God is. So he's in the middle of
Told
talking
him
about the
what
tabernacle,
was-
and he's like, "Hold on a second.
Did I miss
You
that?
got to go back downstairs and check on the people." Right? Yeah. God tells him. That's in verse 7. If you want to look
I'm
at
sorry,
it.
I missed that.
That's okay. That's okay. So Moses goes back down. He talks to Joshua. Joshua's like, yeah, it seems like there's a war that's happening. And Moses is like, no, that's not the sound of victory or defeat. The people are, sinning, basically. So Moses becomes enraged. He takes that calf. He burns it up, grinds it to powder. He smashes the tablets God has just done. That's, by the way, that's not out of sinful anger. It's representing the broken covenant. The people just broke the covenant. He grinds it into powder and actually scatters it on the surface of the water and makes the people drink from it, basically ingesting their sin. Okay? Moses, verse 21, asks Aaron, what do these people do that you have led them into this grave sin? So here's Aaron's reply. Don't be enraged, my lord, Aaron replied. You yourself know that the people are intent on evil. They said, make gods for us who will go before us because this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. That part's true. That's what they said. So I said to them, whoever has gold, take it off. They gave it to me. I threw it into the fire and out popped this calf.
Sounds like a 3-year-old.
Yeah, it really does. Yes. It just popped out, Mommy. I don't know.
Aaron blames
The-
the people.
yeah.
Aaron blames
The word is
people.
that Aaron fashioned the calf. He had to spend some time making a calf. I mean, I don't know anything about like sculpting gold, but goodness, like it's not a fast process. Oh man. Now this turns tragic. Look at verse 25. Moses saw the people were out of control, for Aaron had let them get out of control, making them a laughingstock to their enemies. Moses stood at the camp's entrance and said, whoever is for the Lord, come to me. And all the Levites gathered around him. Okay? Now, so we don't know 100%, were these people involved in the sin and then they came out of the sin? Could be. So there's immediate repentance for these people. That would work scripturally. Or they had completely abstained and they're like, all these other crazies, like, you just do your thing, like we're going to follow God. Maybe that was true too. I think either one works. The point is the Levites immediately come up to him. That is very significant. We'll come back to that here. So the Levites pop up and he told them, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says, every man fasten his sword on his side and go throughout the camp from entrance to entrance and kill your brothers, his friends, and his neighbors. And the Levites did as Moses commanded, and about 3,000 men fell dead that day from among the people. And afterwards Moses said, "Today each of you is dedicated to the Lord, since each man went against his son, his brother. Therefore you have brought a blessing on yourselves today." The following day Moses said to the people, "You have committed a grave sin. Now I will go up to the Lord, and perhaps I will be able to atone for your sins." And then Moses intercedes once more for the people. We're going to talk about that bloodshed, so hang on to that. Verse 31, Moses returned to the Lord and said, "Oh, these people have committed a grave sin. They've made a god of gold for themselves. Now, if you would only forgive their sin, but if not, please erase me from the book they've written." Isn't that a great picture of Christ? Take my life instead of theirs. But he doesn't do that now. He waits for his son. Moses is not the perfect sacrifice. Maybe at the time they would have thought, wow, Moses is this one that was promised, this promised seed that's to come. Nope, he's got failures too. He's a sinful man. The Lord replied to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will erase from my book. Now go and lead the people to the place I told you. See, my angel will go before you, but on the day I settle accounts, I will hold them accountable for their sins." And the Lord inflicted a plague on the people because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made. So 2 consequences. Number 1, though, the Lord did not destroy all of them. It was going to be like the flood, except that only Moses survives. But now God killed some. And it seems like the ones that did not repent are the ones that died. That they had an opportunity, which is very much gospel related, to repent. But otherwise they would have died from the Levites and their swords, or the plague that God sent. So both of those disasters are coming. We should probably talk about the Levites, though. That's pretty horrific. Questions, comments on that one?
I just see that their bystanders are not stopping the evil that they see.
Yeah.
And are we guilty of that?
Yeah. One commentator put it too, like, after Moses is smashing the tablets and doing all of these things, it seems like people are still engaging in this revelry. So then he sends out the Levites. You have to imagine, like, just how far out of control they are, that they will not stop even after all that Moses has done. So Moses gave them a chance to repent.
Also, that there's 2 million of them.
Yeah.
Not that many people are going to see Moses do what he's doing.
Yeah.
Going from gate to gate with a campment, or whatever the phrasing was, I'm not saying I'm getting it quite right.
Sure. Yeah.
That gets through everyone.
Yeah. Yep. As the plague is moving through too, the Levites are moving through.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, that's a good point, if I understood what he was saying correctly, that not everybody could possibly see, right, what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, it just baffles me as far as the 2 million people.
A lot of people there.
How they can all, I mean, I know this is, but you think of telephone. This person says this and this
Yeah.
person, and then, and then by the end it's totally different. So, from Moses saying this to the people, and to get it to 2 million people, the same thing, I don't know, that just.
Yep. But that's his job, right? That was
Well,
the job of
oh,
the leaders, was
yeah.
to communicate truth and make sure it got to the people. But this is this moment where they're so off that something has to be done. Now, this is always tough for us, though, this violence and this kind of like mass killing. 3,000 people died just from the Levites. I don't think it says how many died from the plague. Maybe it does later. So it's an awful thing, but there's something bigger that's happening here. Number 1, this is not the mode of operation that God is always operating on. This is definitely how he operates when he is doing something new and significant. in the life of his people. So you see that there's some very harsh consequences that happen in the New Testament in Acts when there are some people that are lying, right?
To me, in
and
a
when,
way, I guess because I feel for the sin, because I feel like I'm a sinner. And you had all these people that lived 400 years in a
Yeah.
place that was pagan religion. They had different beliefs, different things. You take them out and you think, well, they've seen these miracles, so they're going to suddenly believe in this God. You've got a large group of people that are going to reason it out. Well, this can happen because of this and this,
Yes.
instead of believing it was a miracle. So these people that suddenly wanted a golden calf, I don't feel like their heart had ever really changed. They're with this group.
Yes. I think you're right. There's a lot of different clues in the text that there are many unbelievers who are present and are still refusing to believe, even though they just said, oh yeah, we'll believe, right? And so some of that, and this is one of the things God is demonstrating is that, especially as he's operating at this time, sin must be removed from the camp. Think about all of this stuff over here, all of the uncleanliness rules that we looked at, all of those kind of things. Sin and uncleanliness must be removed from the camp. So he sends the Levites through. Interesting thing about the Levites, remember Levi and his brother Simeon are the guys that when Dinah is raped, Jacob's daughter, they decide to go and slaughter that entire village. And Jacob actually then on his deathbed kind of curses them and says, you'll be scattered. Here, once again, we see the Levites donning swords and going and slaughtering. This time, they're actually following God's orders, and they're among the faithful. Then they drop their swords completely and are consecrated as priests. In Numbers, we'll actually read that God sets aside all of the Levites as his priests, and they act as little Christs. They are substitutes for the people. Every firstborn child was to be offered to God, not as a sacrifice, because the Levites served in their place every single day before God. So the Levites represented all the firstborn of all the land, and they belonged to God. So here's God redeeming Levi from being a murderer to being impassioned with holy and righteous anger, and then serving the people without a sword, slaughtering animals instead of the people.
Were the Levites good warriors or something?
I don't think so.
Why did you choose them?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were like ready.
Oh.
Moses said, whoever wants to stand up before the Lord, come here. And they were like, yep, that's us.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's move along here. I think we've got just a little bit left and just a little bit of time left as well. Okay, did we talk about everything there? We did. Moses intercedes. Okay. If that's not heartbreaking enough, remember about this tabernacle. Next, this is in Exodus 33. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Go up from here, you and all the people who you brought out of the land of Egypt, the land I promised. I'm going to go ahead of you. Where is this? Verse 7. Okay. So Moses took a tent and pitched it outside the camp, at a distance from the camp, and called it the tent of meeting. And to summarize this is where Moses would then continue to encounter God and continue to have conversations. This is not the tabernacle. This is a separate tent that Moses goes to continue talking with God. So we have the presence of God here, and then here is the camp of the people, completely separated and at a distance. So in other words, like very far away. This is where Moses is going and talking with God. This is where he asks to see the glory of God. God passes before him, shelters Moses, declares his name to Moses. And this is also where Moses' face begins to shine. And the people said, whoa, Moses, your face is glowing, dude. Like, cover up. They couldn't stand to see God's glory on Moses' face, so he covers his face with a veil. So this is basically showing the people, because of your sin, I had this planned for you. I was going to live among you. Now I have to live outside. But through Moses' mediation, basically what then happens is this passes away as Moses discusses with God and sees God's glory, and God decides to reinstate the tabernacle. And so that we almost missed this, where the new system would have been only Moses or only the high priest can go outside to God outside of the camp. But now this becomes the tent of meeting, and now God is dwelling with his people. Okay. He also gives Moses new stone tablets in chapter 34. We can actually read then the name of the Lord. Let's check this out. This is in chapter 34, verse 5, when Moses is asked to see God's face. Lord came down in a cloud and stood with him there and proclaimed his name, the Lord. And the Lord passed in front of him and proclaimed. So this is God's name. He's got a very long name. The Lord is compassionate and a gracious God, slow to anger and abounding in faithful love and truth, maintaining faithful love to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity, rebellion, and sin. Thank God for that. But he will not leave the guilty unpunished, bringing the consequences of the father's iniquity on the children and grandchildren to the 3rd and 4th generation. What you see there is a perfect combination of God's righteousness and God's justice and mercy all blended together. He will forgive, but he also punishes. He is holy and righteous, but he's also loving. And all of those things happen together. And this whole punishing children to the 3rd and 4th generation, that's pretty horrific. But think about the words of the Israelites when, in the New Testament, as Jesus is standing before them, bloodied, and Pilate says, "Do you want me to release this person to you?" And they're like, "Crucify him." And the Pharisees then say, "May his blood be on us and our children." And what Jesus was actually doing was just that. So now he reverses this. So instead of him bringing the consequences of sin from generation to generation, now it's possible through Christ to be forgiven generation through generation. Isn't that amazing? The very last thing that we'll mention is chapter 40. The tabernacle is established, so thankfully we don't have to have this tent of meeting way out there. We do bring the tabernacle in. God is living among his people. They establish that. They have a beautiful ceremony that kind of mirrors the Day of Atonement. And then we have a beautiful ceremony. If you want to look this up, this is in Leviticus chapter 8 and 9. We don't have time to look at it today. But there is kind of interspersed between the laws, we see the ordination of Aaron and his sons and the other Levites as priests before the Lord. And then we also have the very next day, Nadab and Abihu, who are up here. The 2 oldest sons of Aaron die because they decide to change the recipe for this holy incense that's here. And they offer strange fire before the Lord. Possibly because they were drunk. The text actually talks about drunkenness in the priests right after that story. We don't know for sure. But it could be that they changed the recipe, which was very specific. But again, they did the same thing as Adam and Eve. They did the same thing as the golden calf. They decided to come to God in their own way, and they were killed. So then Aaron's next 2 sons take their place and serve before the Lord. Again, just kind of reiterating the same themes there.
Now, this is off the subject, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
because when Moses goes into the tent outside, it says God sees him face to face.
Yes.
Does that mean that just God seeing Moses and Moses is not seeing God? Because later on, Moses writes, no one sees God's face.
Yes. That's a great question. So what's said there is that Moses speaks to him face to face like you would speak to another person. So in other words, like he's having an intimate conversation, but the cloud is an enveloping God, so he cannot see God's face because otherwise he would die.
Since
Moses
God
then
is saying it, I was thinking
Yeah.
God seeing his face, but
Yeah,
Moses
definitely.
can't see.
Yeah, it would work that way for sure. and God sees every detail, right? Then Moses asks, well, let me see your glory. And God says, well, you can see my back, right? So he covers him and he goes before him and declares his name. But yeah, he doesn't actually see
Didn't
God's
that like
face.
take a week for God to show him his glory?
Something
I'm
like
sorry,
that.
I know we're running out of
That's a
time.
good question. Prepared in the morning. This is in chapter 34. It doesn't say here for sure about how long it is. It's just that he has a preparation time. So yeah, that's a good question. It does sound familiar though of a time
This is
period, but
before him for, I don't remember. I
Yeah.
think it was 6 days or something.
Hmm.
It
What are
might be
the-
something else.
yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
What are the chapters we started and we ended with 40, right?
We started in Exodus 19.
Okay, I mean today?
Today, yep.
Okay.
We did a review there. We then skipped over the law in 20 through 23, and then we did 24 through 34. Skipped the additional laws that we talked about the tabernacle and some of the feasts, and then finished with 40. And then we also talked about Leviticus 8 and 9, and there's another one in Leviticus 10, 8 through 10. Okay? Next week, we are now moving on from Mount Sinai, and we're going to go into Numbers. We'll summarize the first few chapters, which is a census. We'll talk about why that census is happening, some of the details there, and then we'll start hitting a bunch of narratives. I don't know if we'll get through all of Numbers. My hope is that we'll get through all of Numbers next week. We'll see. We may take it in 2 passes, but our pace will start to pick up again as we get back into the narratives. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just have 2 questions.
Okay.
Now, why was Aaron, and maybe I missed this, but why was he not punished for what he did?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, because he is leading the people in the sin. But in Deuteronomy, actually later, Moses actually says that God was going to kill Aaron. So we don't get that detail here, but in Deuteronomy he mentions that.
Okay.
And I believe, I have to look this up, but I believe that Moses, when he's interceding for the people, he's also interceding for Aaron.
Oh,
So
okay.
all of those, so think about this. Aaron has to live with this for the rest of his life.
Oh, right.
Every time he's doing the Day of Atonement and he's making those sacrifices, he's like, this should be me on the altar.
Wow.
And now I'm the one leading Israel in worship. Wow. So
He's also a little bitter later on about his sons dying too.
yes, so God will not allow him to mourn for his sons, and Aaron almost gets killed again because Aaron actually does slightly alter one of the sacrifices. He doesn't eat. This is in Leviticus. He doesn't eat part of the fellowship offering. Moses confronts him about it because God is really upset. And Aaron says that his heart is not right for worship. He didn't think he should take part in that sacrifice because of how his sons were just killed. And that situation, Moses does accept it. He's like, his heart is in the right place. He's trying to worship God. He just didn't eat this, and that part is okay, I guess. But yeah.
The camp, how long was that? When we talk about the camp, he was in the tent?
Yeah, so he would come out here to meet with God instead of going up to the mountain and instead of the tabernacle. I don't remember how long this was,
Okay.
but yeah, he would come out here and speak to God.
He did that for a while?
Yeah. It might say, if you want to look it up in chapter 33, it might talk about how often or how long that was. But because they were here, so we have been here in just today, we've covered about 50 days of time, roughly.
Oh,
They are at Mount Sinai for about a year, okay? Because when they start constructing the tabernacle, there's quite a bit of time. So was the tent of meeting, maybe it was quite a long time? I don't know. But they're here for almost a year, I think. So
How long does he stay in a tent? Because the people would stand.
yeah, so I think it was like he just stayed out there for months at a time, but he would like go out to talk to God, then come back to the people. But yeah, the people would stand
I
in
mean, if he was
reverence.
in there for 3 hours and standing at their tent, that's a lot of standing.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just imagining like trying to keep my kids still for that long. All right, let's pray. Lord, I thank you for your word. You are holy and you are good. thank you for Christ's blood shed for us. And so we are under this new covenant. We can approach with confidence your throne of grace. Lord, I ask that you would help us this week, that we would take these words, these thoughts, that it would spur further study on our own, that we would understand new things about your holiness and what that means for us as we now are your representatives, your priests to the nations. I ask that you would convict each person of sin, and that you would help them apply the words to their lives just in the way that you have prepared, so that they can serve you better this week. In your name, amen.
Amen.